It's recording. Okay. Welcome. Today's Confined in Confinement Kitchen with your host, Jeremy Kelly. Today I'm going to be making a sweet and sour soup. I pre-chopped some of this stuff because I didn't want you to watch me make an extra long video of me chopping up vegetables. So, anyway, if you want to follow along, on my Amazon or Kindle, there is a vegetarian cookbook, and if it loads, I'm waiting for it to load. There's a sweet and sour soup in there. It's going to be good because I'm not feeling too well today, so I thought that would be good. Soups are easy. They're quick, which is good whenever you don't have a lot of energy, and they're really good for you whenever you're sick. So it's a lot of pluses there. And with the sweet and sour, hot and sour soup, it's got garlic and what else does it have that's really good for you? Oh, chicken broth. It is a vegetarian cookbook, but I'm using chicken broth because I had it. I don't have vegetable broth ready. I'll show you how to make that later. But still, chicken broth's really good for you whenever you're not feeling that great. So it helps restore your oh man, I can't think of it. Electrolytes. I think it does more than that, but that's a big bonus. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn the Instant Pot up to saute. The recipe does say to use a good vegetable oil. I'm using extra virgin olive oil because this is a confined kitchen and I don't have a lot of different kinds of oil to play with. So I'm going to use olive oil for my cooking. But if you have vegetable oil, then feel free to use that. Alright, so that's going to heat up. I got some golden oak shiitake mushrooms from Fred Meyer. That would be fries at your in Arizona. And then I have these white button mushrooms that I chopped up and I'm going to throw in there. So it's going to be a nice variety. And looks like the Miracle Pot's still, or Instant Pot's still warming up. I got my love bracelet on. I'm charging it right now while I cook. Confined in confinement cooking. That's warming up. It's getting warm quick. So what we're going to do is we're going to just put the mushrooms in and let them, let the liquids come out of it. We're going to put salt in there and then a whole bunch of pepper. And we're going to let that kind of cook for a little bit. But then I'm going to use this spoon and I'm going to pull half of the mushrooms out and stick them on this plate. And then we're going to continue to cook the other half to create you got two different kinds of mushrooms that have two different kinds of texture. So that's basically four different kinds of mushrooms. Once you're done, it gives a nice variety of texture and flavor to the dish. So it stretches, with a little imagination, it stretches what you have. So it's even better than if you just had two different kinds of mushrooms. So this is getting quite warm. Now the Instant Pot's going to say hot whenever it's done. Notice the outside's not hot at all. it's going to say hot whenever it's done. So that's when you know that you can start putting stuff in. And I actually had this thing sit the other day because I got a phone call from my boss. I couldn't ignore that. I let it sit while I talked to my boss, and it didn't let the oil burn. It's a nice safety feature on the Instant Pot is, you know, if you leave it unattended, which you shouldn't leave it unattended, but if you had to leave it unattended, the Instant Pot's not going to catch on fire, unless you had like a really, really low flammability oil, which I am not sure what type of oil that would be. I'm using extra virgin olive oil, and that oil burns at a very low temperature, and it didn't burn. So if you're using, like, say, grapeseed oil, which has a really hot burn temperature, it's not going to give you any problems at all. I do like cooking with grapeseed oil. It allows you to get stuff really hot whenever you're sauteing, and whenever it gets that hot, it doesn't stick. So if you notice, the Instant Pot's hot, so I washed these before I threw them in here, so they're bubbling quite a bit. I'm going to stick the other mushrooms in. So it's a pound of each mushrooms, although I ate some of the mushrooms, so there isn't quite a pound of each in here. But oil goes a long way for me, and this is going to be plenty for several days. I'm sure this would feed a family pretty easily for one night. So. Hopefully I have the camera recording the right side this time. The last time I selected the wrong camera and recorded the wall, so that wasn't very good. And just in case, here you can look at the ceiling. Alright. So these are cooking very fast. Liquid's coming out. I'm in a big hurry. Normally you're supposed to cover this and let the liquids release for a little while. I'm putting this on saute because I'm in a hurry. It's already 7:40. I've got things to do tonight, so I'm hurrying this recipe along. That smells so good. I'm gonna go get the salt and pepper. I just love the smell of sauteed mushrooms. And the salt just brings out that smell a little more. That's perfect. And plenty of pepper. That's what gives it the hot and the hotness. Oh, I can't even remember the name. Hot and sour soup. I think the vinegar is probably what gives it the sour flavor. Maybe a little more pepper. That doesn't look like enough. Doesn't smell like enough either. Just follow your nose. now it smells peppery. Alright, so it's supposed to be in there for about 5 minutes. I think it's been about 5. So I'm going to mix it around a little bit, and then we're going to take half of these out. Stick them on this plate over here. I'll let those cook for a little bit more. And let's see. Get the mushrooms, black pepper, I'm supposed to put the heat down to medium-low and cook undisturbed until I see steam escape. And then uncover and cook undisturbed until the liquid completely boils off. I'm just going to keep it at this high temperature though, because like I said, I'm cheating. It's late, I've been working all day. I'm sick and tired, and I am hungry. Is there anything else that I can do? Just let them sizzle till they're, and cook, stirring occasionally till they're dry, shrunken, and as crisp as you like them. And then we're going to transfer the crispy mushrooms to the plate to join their friends. I'm going to put a little more salt on there. When I'm sick, I crave a lot of salt because I'm drinking a lot of water. So it's getting close. I'm gonna go open the doors so the smell doesn't build up too much in here. Oh, sorry I dropped you there. There's probably some picking up I can do in the meantime. Let's see. I can definitely put some of this stuff away with the cabbage. Try and multitask so by the time I'm done, you know? So we're going to be adding sesame oil, soy sauce, and rice vinegar. That's the sour part of this. And then I chopped up my cabbage. I like to chop up my cabbage in long strands, and to give them a kind of a noodle-like texture in my soups. I just like noodles in my soups. I don't particularly like noodles. I like vegetables that resemble noodles. It's just a personal preference. So this thing says it's hot. Probably because the mushrooms are not absorbing very much more heat here. Oh man, this pepper's really starting to react. I'm not going to get these out perfect. Get as much as I can. It's sticking to the plate, as you can see. That's okay, we're going to add liquid to it. Alright, so next step, it's hot already, so we're going to add our garlic and ginger to this. Oh man, that is an amazing smell on its own. It almost smells like cooking jam for some reason. Not sure why. Man, that sweet smell of the ginger. I love fresh ginger. And if you go to the grocery store, you don't have to buy a big hunk of ginger. You can just break off what you need. Because ginger doesn't last very long. So just break off a piece, whatever you need. Don't feel bad about it. And just buy that little piece. As long as it's big enough to register on the scale, which you shouldn't have too much of a problem with that. Sometimes I just buy one jalapeno. It doesn't register on the scale, so I have to buy two. Definitely fragrant. So now I'm going to add my broth and celery for the next part of this recipe. It's a multitasking lampstand right there. Got my bracelet plugged in, providing me light, and my tablet stand. I think the recipe said to add the celery first, or sorry, the broth first. I'm adding the celery first because I want this heat to hit that celery and get it hot, cook it for me quickly, and maybe shave some time off of the recipe. I'm supposed to add the cabbage as well. But I'm just going to allow that. Still have this thing on saute. I'm just allowing this to really heat up the celery. Kind of like a Mongolian grill. I know that later on in the recipe they're going to ask for sesame oil. But right now this is really dry. I don't want to burn my celery, so I'm going to add some of the sesame oil to provide some moisture. And I'm going to add a little of the broth. That's just going to help steam it, heat it up. Because what I'm going for is really shortening the recipe time so I can eat fast, obviously. Sorry. It's called an instant pot. It's not called a slow pot. So I'm going to cook this fast. And it's already softening up those that cabbage in there and releasing tons of smells. It smells amazing. And it looks like the celery is already starting to soften up and become a little transparent, more transparent than it was. And all that mushroom gunk that was sticking to the pan earlier is getting loosened up because of the high temperature and steam. So it's self-cleaning. Self-cleaning recipes are always good. Just agitate it and help get the mushrooms off of there, so you don't have to clean this pan later. Because all that's flavor. The best flavors, they say, are the ones that are gone. They're stuck to the pan, and you can never get them out. Same thing with grilling meat. The best flavor is actually sticking to the grill. You're never going to taste it. So, people say, "Oh, that's gross." You're eating the stuff off the bottom of the pan. That's the best tasting stuff. That's where the caramelization occurs. The flavors are evaporated and condensed to a super strong flavor. Alright, so this is about where I want it. Let me show you. Cabbage is all green. Just brought out the colors and everything, and it's softer than it was. So from here, I'm going to continue to follow the recipe now. I'm going to add this broth in here. Wash some of this stuff down. Don't want to waste anything, because that's a spoon, right? A spoonful right there. Somebody just would have missed out on. And make sure that you don't waste anything. There we go. So we're going to let that cook. I am actually going to put this on the soup broth setting. Probably have to stop it first. So the soup broth setting, it's going to heat up. You know how if you have to boil anything, you have to turn it on high heat until it warms up to the desired temperature, and then you turn down the heat because now it's too hot. The Instant Pot takes care of all that for you. So it will raise it up to a high heat temperature, and then once it's done, it will bring it back down. Now, one thing I do notice here is it's got the pressure. You see the P right there? So I could actually put the lid on and pressure cook this thing to get it done faster. So I've got our mushrooms in there. I've got my they're not in there yet, but I'm gonna throw those in here. So threw those in. There's just a few things to go, looks like. It says whisk together vinegar, sesame oil. I already put the sesame oil in there, so to help cook those the celery. So I didn't want to buy a big thing of cornstarch because it's a big thing of cornstarch. So as this is a confined kitchen, I just bought all-purpose Wonder quick mixing flour. It works the same as cornstarch for thickening. The only thing is, the trick to thickening is you have to mix it with cold water first. Otherwise, as soon as you add it to the soup, it's going to cook like dough before it ever dissolves in your food. So what you need to do is get some cold water, stick it in a cup. You can add your vinegar to this too, so I'm going to do that. Not sure how much vinegar I need to add. Let me check that. Tablespoon of soy sauce and 1/4 of a cup of rice vinegar. So those small measurements I'm just gonna call it a smidge. Just gonna guess this. So. Quarter. That smells good. That's rice vinegar. And this is, oh, that's the sesame oil. I don't need that. I'm going to grab the soy sauce. Just a tablespoon. I overdid the water. I'm not quite sure if that was 6 cups of broth in the first place. Well, the recipe says you can add water instead of broth if you don't have it. But broth, well, it's pretty expensive at the store, but if you make it yourself, and I'll show you how later, it's quick and easy. And I'm quite sure it doesn't cost very much. Alright, I'm just going to kind of do some guesswork here because there is an exact transfer of how much flour versus cornstarch. Cornstarch is very potent and it's easy to mess up. Flour is not. Flour is a lot harder to mess up, and that's why I like flour too. You can overdo it and it usually is just fine. But if you overdo it with cornstarch, you got quite a mess. But cornstarch doesn't have any flavor on its own, really. So that's why people prefer cornstarch, because you could taste this. I'm going to be able to taste this flour. I think there was a clump in there. Did you see that? I have a clump of bread in my soup. Dumplings. Alright. Well, it says pressure, so I'm going to put the lid on this thing. Put it on, not venting, but put it on sealing. And this should get up to a decent temperature. And that'll help not stink up my apartment, which I appreciate because it's not very big. Like I said, this is confined cooking. You don't want to smell your food for the next week. So, I think that's it. Oh, I'm not done. Okay, this pressure hasn't come up yet. One of the things that I forgot to do is there is tofu in the recipe. That's going to add protein to it. Protein has an eggy taste to it, which is really good with Asian food. It says to cube it, so you just rather take it to the second power. Sorry, math joke. Let's see if I can get this thing open. I always have a hard time. Well, the last time I did this was I just cut around the edges. Like this. And then I can tear it off. A lot of liquid in there. I found this in the produce aisle, strangely enough. I think this should be a meat, though. It's a refrigerated item, so look for the refrigerators in the produce section. And I'm just going to cut slits all the way across. Sounds like my soup's starting to boil. So I cut it diagonally, now I'll cut it vertically, and that should give me the cubes that I need. Kind of long cubes, but if anyone has any other ideas, I'm open to hear it. I was just told this is the easiest way to cube tofu, so that's what I'm doing. I'm all for easy. Alright, so after you're done, it should look like this. Slits all the way across. I'm going to add this to my boiling hot and sour soup. I always love the sound of hot. I like spicy food when I'm not feeling that great. I don't know why. Because it just clears the sinuses out. But it's just do the pepper in there. The cabbage has a cabbage kind of has a spicy vapor to it too. Like I said, it's related to horseradish. So if you ever notice, if you've ate like a salad with really a high amount of cabbage in it, you'll notice the horseradishy flavor in it that just kind of burns your nose. It's kind of an interesting thing. It's like you don't expect cabbage to burn your nose, but it does. Man, that soup looks pretty good. So I'm going to let that cook or heat up again because that tofu was in the fridge, so it was cold. But the tofu doesn't need to cook. That is definitely Asian. That is good. I wish I would have added a little more ginger to it, but if you have ginger powder, I'm sure you could probably throw some in there to ginger it up. So I can't really adjust it at this point unless it's more salt and pepper, but it's perfect. So I'm actually going to stop this. It says keep warm. I'll just put that on keep warm. And that's it. That's pretty exciting. Sweet and, hot and spicy soup. I'm actually going to put more pepper in there because I want it really spicy. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I love you. Talk to you later. If I can switch. My fingers are not working on the touchpad. Alright, I hope this turned out. Talk to you later. Bye.